y'all, welcome back to Ascending with Ashley. I'm Ashley. Now I was back into pancakes. So we're back over here. We were doing cinnamon rolls for a while. Welcome. We are just going to, I'm being called to talk a little bit about globalization and what that has done for spirituality. And also we need to make the distinction between spirituality and religion. So, we're just going to do this quick while we make pancakes. I'm making my tea. And, I put the disco balls on so that you know that this isn't that serious. Okay, so... last night I did a channeling, and a lot of people watched it, and that makes me nervous. 13 people is a lot for me, so... but I want to talk about some stuff. So, tea leaves. So, I channeled through, that Odin, who is the god of war and other things from Norse mythology, or not mythology, it's not a myth, Norse traditions. And also Hecate, which I believe she's from Greece, or Greek tradition. There was a channeler, a white woman on TikTok, who was channeling a Oshun, and Oshun is a water god, African water god, and she got a lot of hate for it, because she's white, and, I didn't have any feelings until I saw some Oshun practitioners talking about it, and then I was like, oh, well, respectfully, if it is a closed practice, then yeah, she shouldn't be doing that, because she was very unapologetic about it. Don't worry, I'm getting to my point. I'm just using this as a fucking case example. I don't have the answers. I'm just in this human form. But what I can say is that globalization has drastically changed the way that people think about culture, practices, spirituality, and also religion. And I think that when spirituality is not about doctrine. Spirituality is a personalized, personal relationship that we all, each of us, have to whatever it is that we consider a greater power, even if it is just within ourselves, right? So that includes atheists or agnostics, right? Agnostics believe in something, but they're not quite sure what. Atheists believe in nothing, right? So spirituality is an open practice for all to find what it is that helps them within their own humanity. Within that, though, there are closed practices that are still culturally relevant. Globalization has made things more accessible, but it has watered down and whitewashed a lot of stuff too, because we live within a white supremacist capitalist society globally. Okay, hang on, the dogs want to come in. It's too cold. So if I have never, until very recently, like this year, hi birds, stop pooping on my car, please. Jerks. Anyway, I have not been someone to work with gods or goddesses until literally the past few weeks. Mostly because of my own struggles within everything that happened to me. I am a seer. I am a channel. But that was all labeled with mental illness, and it made me go kind of weird and not really believe in anything that I was hearing, right? Until very recently, I finally have gotten into a space. A lot of this was because my mother wouldn't allow me to be in this space. Even as a grown-ass woman, she was not able. She's a muggle. I am not. Anyway, I think that's another thing. Magic is very relevant and prevalent within spirituality. And I want us to just have this basic ass understanding. And the reason I used this woman as an example is because if you are found to be doing a closed practice, even if it is a personal relationship that you have found, be very careful with that. If a lot of the people that were hating on this woman were like, you can't do that because that's a black god, right? And you're a white woman. And I think my initial gut reaction to that conversation was probably problematic because I myself am also white, but I'm also incredibly spiritual, but not on the like right alt. Like, so there's white folks who have co-opted spirituality, right? The QAnon, the love and light crowd, right? When you work with goddesses who acknowledge dark, right? Like Odin, like Hecate, like Isis, like Oshun as well, which is the goddess in question. I think what's important is that, so then these women who were practicing and were worshiping, I think that worship can be problematic too. I feel like in these times, because we are combating globalization, it's more about like a teamwork, but I myself am not a worshiper. I think I have pretty different view than a lot of people. Like, I don't do altars. I don't do shit like that. If you want to work with me, like if you want to send me messages that you want me to put out, I'll do that. But like, I don't worship any ideologies, and I don't know why I'm sharing my personal beliefs. I guess it's just some people worship, some people don't. Some people work with, some people don't. Some people believe this, some people don't. And I feel like within globalization, when we limit ourselves to, again, closed practices are closed practices for specific cultural groups. I am totally on board with that. And also, I feel like sometimes people receive messages from energies or spirits that they may not have ever received messages from. When and if that happens, if you get called out for using a closed practice or working with a person or god or energy that you're not supposed to be because of your colonial lineage, right? If you haven't done the legwork to remove colonial damage in your lineage, you have absolutely no right to work with gods and goddesses that are to liberate folk, right? That are here. Dea, Dea, can you tell us about Hecate? She said, no, I'm good. So, all that to say is, globalization itself is a colonial measure, okay? As lands have been colonized, people have been genocided, information, history has been co-opted, right? It's important to acknowledge that within your own spiritual practice, because otherwise you're just going to be initiating the same bullshit, and that's not spirituality. Spirituality is not about supremacy. It's about your own personal relationship to a higher power for the greater good, right? So anyway, if and when people get called out for working with certain things, I've always been very hesitant because of the way that I know demonic entities have cloaked themselves within my energy in the past, to work directly with people. I've only worked with, I think it's very important to have, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a word. Can you guys give me this word so we can move the fuck on? I'm standing here weird. It's right at the tip of my tongue. It's important to, I'm getting common sense, but that's not the word. Maybe it's common good. I don't know. It's important to understand, like what your motivating factor is, right? And if you're doing things for personal gain or personal power at the expense of others, and that includes closed practices, then yeah, you're not on the right side. Okay? So when and if people, entity, I don't want to use entities. I have a very negative connotation for entities, even though that is an umbrella term for energetic beings. I think the word itself has a very negative connotation. But anyway, okay, we're trailing the fuck off. The point is that more of these ascended masters that have passed on, your ancestors, and again, if you have colonial lineage, it's your responsibility to take on the wrongdoings of your ancestors and correct those while you're in human form. And until you do that, you're not going to have access to shit. Been there, done that. So that means if you aren't in that process, right? So if you are like these supremacists who are like love and light, right? I'm going to work with whoever I want, right? Like Oshun is coming through, even though you say that she can't, I'm getting that. When that happens, when you see a conversation like that happen, you want to take the side of the people that you know are right. Not the people who may be in their wounded colonial mindset, right? And then you want to apologize. Because, like, at first I was like, dude, why, like, shit like that doesn't matter on the other realm, right? Like, human constructs don't matter on the other realm. But that doesn't mean that while someone's in human form, they are perpetrating violence within doing something that is a closed practice, right? That's the point. Globalization does not give you permission to work with whoever the fuck you want. And within spirituality, you need to be very careful of worshiping or working alongside of or receiving messages from all of these things, right? It's a very fine line, like most things are, that yes, we want the collective consciousness to rise and we want each individual to have a path of their own for their own spirituality, whatever that looks like. But that doesn't mean that you can just pick and choose what to do, what works for you, what works for you not, especially when you have people who have been harmed for carrying out those practices culturally, who are not allowed to, and you cannot just take that, right? For instance, white sage. White sage is a closed practice. Indigenous people to the Americas have been saying, please stop doing that. That's not, and it's been totally capitalized. I used to burn white sage in the groups I was in LA. I was working with elders and others. I was the minority. And then as I stopped working with those folks, I stopped using those practices. And I think I'm not trying to be like, up on a high horse, but I just want people to understand that your spiritual practices are not set in stone. they are supposed to flow with what information and the collective energy is in need of at any given time. Whereas religion, because it is a colonial construct, is about structure, obedience, discipline, obedience, and money, right? Spirituality is it fluctuates, okay? But within that fluctuation, within globalization, learning about things, honoring them, that doesn't mean you need to take them on as your own. Until you get to a space where, again, if you have colonial lineage, you need to be releasing for the harm that your ancestors have done. You do not get access to higher beings, especially with cultural relevance to a different group of people than what you are embodied as, until you do that work. So, all that to say, if you're getting messages from someone who is considered to be within a closed practice, and the culture within that closed practice is telling you and calling you out and making videos about it, you should take accountability for that. That within itself, the action of taking accountability of being wrong within that practice, acknowledging that this practice is closed, acknowledging that you're not within the certain group, is a form of doing that colonial lineage harm reduction while here, right? I hope this makes sense. Just because there is access to global ideas, practices, cultures, does not mean that we can, right? There's a fine line between cultural appreciation and cultural appropriation. And if you don't have the education behind what it is that you're doing from a different culture, you shouldn't be doing it. And you definitely shouldn't be doing it if you have not cleared that within your own line. Okay? And again, religion's not going to do that for you, but spirituality is. And also, people who are religious are able to also have a spiritual path, right? It took a long time for me to realize, because while I was in the church, I left the church at about 16, 17, never went back. It was a good 20 years. I've been out of the church and on my own spiritual journey. But a lot of people who are within the church don't believe that spirituality can exist outside of it. I want to let you know, yes, it does. Absolutely. Remember that religion is a man-made construct, right? For, again, obedience, control, money, discipline of the masses, right? That's why colonizers use religion. That's why we're seeing what's going on in the Middle East. Religion, right? When I used to have Facebook way back when it first came out, and they had like they still have it, but like religion and stuff, all of my things were like religion. I was like, it causes more harm than good, right? Spirituality is your own personal path. So all that to say, I don't want to burn myself, but I really need something to drink. Hold on. When you do wrong, acknowledge it and apologize for it, whether that's to other humans or whatever it is you need to apologize to. Also within this, don't believe everything. When you do start to open your third eye, don't believe everything you hear. That will cause hallucinations and delusions. Don't believe everything you hear, especially if you are receiving any sort of messages from quote-unquote celebrities, dead celebrities, especially entities, demonic entities, low vibrational entities, love to cloak as dead celebrities. Myself, I've worked with a lot of people who have fallen for that, myself included. If you haven't heard the Blink-182 story in jail, that was a moment of that, or a side effect of that medication they put me on. But yeah, when you hear, if you are hearing celebrities, you are probably not in a good space to be relaying any sort of information to anyone, because that is more than likely a demonic entity that is cloaking and fooling you into believing that you are communicating with someone that you are not. Again, been there, done that. If you need clarification, hit me up. I will share more about that. But anyway, be careful. Ultimately, be careful. Study things before you want to learn about them. That's the thing. Education is a really important acknowledgement of respect for different things that you haven't been familiar with. Also, don't rush the process. A lot of people in the spiritual community are trying to make money out of doing this work. Myself included, sort of, not really. Um, but like, this isn't just a job. This is like, this comes with like the acknowledgement of like supporting humanity, okay? And recognizing that each of us have a certain following or group, right? Like, so like there's people all over the world with esoteric knowledge, right? With pathways to spirit, right? I believe we all have those abilities. I believe that we've all just been muted to certain degrees because of indoctrination. So part of what I like to do for folks or support folks in is reclaiming your own spiritual path, right? Be careful though, okay? Again, I don't really work with Odin. He came through, but he's been coming through to me and like kind of like tapping me on a private level, because I've done the work to be able to work with entities or ascended masters, goddesses, gods. Again, that's not something I ever thought for myself because of my past. But I'm here now, and I have to caution people that this is very real, okay? And if you are respectfully working with them, they will come to you. This is not, it's not something you seek out for yourself. You can learn about things, but they will come to you. Again, there's a very fine line of what that looks like, so be careful. And don't be a dick. Don't be culturally appropriating things that do not belong to you. And when you are called out on that, apologize, acknowledge it, move away from it, recognize the harm that you have done, make amends for that. Otherwise, you're just creating more dark cycles. And that's not, that's interesting because I wanted to like undo it, right? So like, be careful. And remember, this isn't about yourself. This isn't an egocentric path, but it is a personal relationship. Okay? Hope that makes sense. Have a good one.